And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Rupert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Rupert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the unceded and traditional territory of the Sipshan people. 35 years ago, Commissioner Barry Sullivan wrote his report, A Legacy for Learners, Report for Royal Commission on Education. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1990.
We used to focus almost solely on academic work, pencil and paper work, and the children sitting in their desk. And the year 2000 focuses more on the whole child. They have the 5 basic areas that they emphasize, and intellectual or academic is just one of them. And so we're incorporating a lot of other activities and play and movement and talking, much more than just pencil and paperwork, which is what we used to do a lot of.
Jenkins found teaching much more restrictive when she first stepped into the classroom.
I used to have a large class, and they used to sit in straight rows in desks, and we would expect them to sit in their desk for most of the day without moving very much at all. They would listen to me a lot, and they would write answers to my questions or to the book's questions on paper. And that was, if we gave them a piece of paper to draw a picture on, that was a treat.
Jenkins stresses the importance of having smaller class sizes. She feels it's important and the only way to implement the Year 2000 program properly. While the student-teacher ratio plays a vital role in the success of the Year 2000 program, so does money. Time and time again, it's been said the principles of Year 2000 will be workable only if sufficient funding is devoted to all aspects of the education system. Stephanie Moulton teaches at E.T. Kenny School as well.
There are a lot of positive aspects to the Year 2000 program. It will depend on whether or not we have the actual funding that's necessary for this to happen. For instance, in order for there to be centers, there has to be a lot of expensive equipment. We, so far, haven't had the funding for that. The reason Linda and I have this is because I have Year 1 children, and so the centers are provided for Year 1 classes, but they aren't provided for the other classrooms. Another important aspect of the Year 2000 program is a good supply of good trade books for each classroom. We don't have much money for buying books either. So it will depend a lot on how they're going to fund the program, how large they're going to make the classes. Part of the reason that this works is we have 2 classrooms to have all of these centers in, and we both have smaller classes because of contractual agreements, because of the age groups we have. If we had only one age group and we had 25 children each, then there would be 50 children that we were trying to work with in a centers approach. That's more difficult.
Education Minister Tony Brummett has assured British Columbians $1.4 billion is designated for the implementation of the policy directions over the next 10 years. Brummett says an additional $1.5 billion will be spent over the next 6 years on building new schools and upgrading old buildings. Stephanie Moulton and Linda Jenkins are colleagues, but they do more than just work at the same school. They work in the same classroom. They have a special arrangement, team teaching. The two combine their efforts to teach Year 1, 2, 3, and 4 students. Normally, Moulton would teach Year 1 and 2, and Jenkins would be in charge of Year 3 and 4 kids.
We didn't have to make the move in order to teach, but in order to implement the primary program, it was necessary, because part of the primary program is to allow the children a lot of exploration. And if you can't have them moving around, you can't really have them doing much exploration. We like to use the centers approach. It's very useful. But again, you can't use a centers approach if you don't have room to move. In the centers approach, we set up different centers. So you'd have a building center with a lot of building materials, and you have an art center where we have a big table and paint easels and art materials. We have a science center with a water table and microscopes and that kind of thing. We have a math center where we keep all of our math things, and the children move from one center to a home center and a writing center. So they move from one center to another doing activities in the different centers. And sometimes we pick which center we'd like them to be in and to work in. And other times they get to freely choose which center they're going to go to and what they will do in it. We don't structure our whole day around centers, but we do have two very definite times when they're totally working at different centers.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. The Sullivan Commission report recommended a common curriculum from grades 1 through 10, including humanities, fine arts, sciences, and practical arts. Let us return to the archives to discover how teachers worked in teams to deliver this curriculum.
In order to have access to the sandbox and paint easels, the teachers have had to make some changes to the classroom itself. What used to be 2 classrooms now make up this one large room.
Yes, we have a folding wall in between these 2 classrooms. And so we have removed the wall partially so that we can move freely from one room in through to the other room. And this allows my children, which are later primary, to share the equipment from the early primary classrooms. That is the kindergarten equipment, which we don't have and I wouldn't be able to use and my children wouldn't have access to. The facilities, the large blocks for building, the sandbox, the water tables, the paint easels, all that are available to us because we have use of the kindergarten equipment.
The Year 2000 program attempts to focus on the learner as opposed to the teacher teaching. An integral part of that learner-focused concept is to incorporate different activities into the education system. And along with the center's approach Jenkins talked about earlier, comes playtime.
The playtime allows the children to go to a center that they would like to work in or to play in and to freely interact with what we have provided for them in the center. So they can interact with the materials and the other children, and more than just play, it's what we call active exploration. So they are interacting with the materials and the other children, but they are deciding what to do and how to do it. We're not totally directing what they must do. It's very important just to give them more experience with the materials. And when you're playing with something, you are more relaxed and you're able to observe what's happening and to have repeated trials at it to see what's working and what isn't working and just how it works. And so the interaction and the freedom to interact and the relaxed quality of them being able to look at what they're doing and think about it is very helpful. There's no stress on them to perform, so they can spend as much time with something as they want to.
Probably over the last while, the most difficult thing to adjust to is in allowing for more movement and active exploration with the children. The noise level is higher in a classroom. In prior years, the idea has been that if it's very loud or noisy in your classroom, it isn't necessarily productive noise. So something that we've had to get adjusted to is that really they are producing things, they are being productive. And it's a busy noise, it isn't meaning that they aren't working.
Teachers have always had extra time allocated during their working day to prepare for the classroom. Now with the Year 2000 program, it's expected planning will take a little longer. But when you have to consider not only yourself, but another teacher with another group of kids, it takes even more time and a lot of thought. For Moulton and Jenkins, the amount of prep time has increased substantially.
It takes a lot of planning. We plan after school and sometimes on weekends. And we've never really kept track of how many hours it takes us to plan.
What's involved in the planning?
Well, for instance, when we start a new theme, we have to get together, go to the library, figure out first of all, decide on a theme, and then go and search out the books and the materials that we want to use with that theme. get all of the centers organized, what we would like each of the groups to be working on, and then getting the materials, setting them up in the classroom, and organizing how we're going to work in our time schedule.
But even though a few more hours are put in and the classrooms had to be changed, both Moulton and Jenkins say they like what they're doing and they've had no trouble adapting.
I enjoy teaching in the classroom this way. It works better with a smaller group of children. A large group, you simply couldn't do a lot of the things that we are doing. Teaching is interesting, and you can let the kids develop their ideas in a lot of different directions now. Whereas in the past, we were going from point A to point B, and we didn't allow for variations in between. So anyone who thought a little bit differently or who worked a little bit differently was out of luck, and we didn't allow for that. It's more interesting now, it's more fun for the teachers, and I think quite a bit nicer for the children as well.
The face of education is changing, and while the teachers may be adapting, parents are tougher to convince. A recent forum on the Year 2000 program in Terrace attracted a smaller crowd than what was anticipated, but a lot of questions and concerns came from the few people who were there.
I'm really questioning the fact whether parents have a voice in what kind of curriculum their children get, and where is the teacher accountability, where is funding going to come from, and I think those questions have to be answered.
Yeah, I think that people have to be told at this point what to expect for their children's education in the future.
Some people had some excellent questions, some, particularly the one about the dual entry, the half-day kindergarten for certain things.
There were so many questions to be answered, the forum lasted much longer than planned. And even after spending an extra hour and a half dealing with queries from area residents, many went home still doubting the province's new plan for their kids' education.
It's very difficult to have all concerns answered in a large group gathering, and that's why I do feel that we have to focus on the schools.
And the focus will be on the schools. Iverson says area parents are invited to visit Terrace District schools to see firsthand what's happening in the classroom.
I think that's probably the avenue that we're going to have to take, because parents seem to feel comfortable within a school setting, and I think that's probably going to be the way that information will be dispersed, whether it be through newsletters or school meetings or whatever.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Recycling is the process of collecting and processing materials that would otherwise be thrown away as trash and turning them into new products. Recycling can benefit your community and the environment. Let us return to the archives to see how Prince Rupert practices recycling.
Many communities are finding that they are running out of room to dump local waste, and in some cases are even exporting refuse to remote areas of the country. It's partly because of the increasing garbage crisis that the recycling movement is taking off. Many places have well-developed blue box recycling programs which give people an opportunity to dispose of goods like paper, metal cans, aluminum cans, and glass. And while most communities in the Northwest seem to be lagging behind much of the country in their willingness to adopt municipal recycling programs, independent recycling groups are flourishing. In Prince Rupert, the Recycling Society is well on its way towards instituting a community-wide recycling service.
It will look like this with a lid. And yes, with Prince Rupert being the way it is, we sort of feel a lid is essential. These will also be put on the curbside eventually, so, and perhaps maybe we should put lead weights on the bottom so that they don't get blown around. I don't know how we're going to deal with that one, but people will put all the recyclable material in here, and by the time the collection program is being implemented, we're going to have experienced recyclers in every home, and they will sort their paper, and they will be in proper areas in here, because we'll be getting glass, metal, and paper all in the one box. So to reduce the amount of labor that goes on here in the depot with the employees and with the volunteers, we want to keep the sorting problem down to a minimum. So we're going to ask people to sort at home as best they can.
The Prince Rupert Recycling Society began less than 2 years ago with 17 charter members and has grown to a membership of over 70 and a collection of dedicated recyclers who bring in their household waste to the local depot. The depot itself is the focal point of the recycling effort in the city. It opened this past June to the public and allowed city residents an opportunity to practice recycling on the weekends. But the Recycling Society had a larger mandate and has been working hard to make the depot a full-time proposition. That aim became a reality earlier this month when the recycling depot hired a manager to run the depot on a full-time basis.
It's just getting started up, as you can see, and I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be an education for me, too. It's a relatively unique facility in this part of the world, and nobody's got a job description that says recycling depot manager as yet. So.
The recycling depot is winning praise from both residents of Prince Rupert and politicians alike. Skeena MP Jim Fulton says that the recycling depot is a good start, and with the help from federal and provincial governments, more communities in the Northwest will be able to follow suit.
Conservation and energy efficient are the two most important things that we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to improve the atmosphere, to improve economies, and to reduce the kinds of environmental pollution and landfill problems that we have. So this start here in Rupert, I would hope, will expand quite quickly, both here and into other communities that have enough quantity to allow for recycling. And hopefully other communities in the Northwest will pick up on it because there is particularly federal funding available to do it.
Currently, the Prince Rupert Recycling Depot is operating under the federal government's Environmental Partners Program. It has received $200,000, which has to be matched by the city and the society in terms of volunteer support. Sheila Doby, chairperson and a longtime supporter of the Prince Rupert Recycling Society, says volunteer support is not going to be a problem.
From the city population, it's been tremendous. The society itself is providing a lot of the volunteer work up until now, and now that we have a manager, of course, we'll have a couple of part-time paid employees as well as our paid manager. But the volunteer work will also be very important, and we have yet to even access some of the community groups that have requested to support us voluntarily, like the Boy Scouts and the Youth Corps and some of the handicapped people. They've all requested to come and help us voluntarily, so we have yet to even access them. So I don't think we're going to have any problems with the volunteer help.
The Recycling Society is taking a long-term approach to building up its profile in the community. It has a 3-year mandate to make the recycling depot, if not a paying proposition, at least not a money-losing operation. Its first priority, now that the depot is open full-time, is to put the Blue Box program in place. Sheila Doby hopes that by January, Blue Boxes will be distributed to people in the community who are willing to take part in the program. Also on the agenda is a program to bring the business community online.
We've gotten the city under, behind us. We've basically got a physical structure, a depot with regular hours and that kind of thing, and we've done transports out. And as far as I understand, we're the only community that's really cornered in on the domestic homes to get them. And now we're working on offices as well. We're going around and we're trying to educate the offices because they have all the high quality paper, the computer, the ledgers papers, which are extremely high quality, and we can get a lot of return for that, which in the end can go back into supporting the whole depot on its own.
And the response from that's been good?
And the response has been excellent. Yeah, we've got a lot of offices and, Ridley Island Terminals, Support Corporation, all people who are wanting to get their offices organized to efficiently recycle.
Just recently, the depot shipped out its very first load of material to be recycled. A total of 3 shipments was sent out from the depot by Rivtow, a local shipping company. The total weight of the recycled goods was 24,500 kilograms, material which has been gathered since the depot opened in June. The money reaped from this harvest of garbage was a modest $250. But it's a start towards making the recycling depot a paying proposition. If the recycling depot can at least make ends meet, it's hoped that it will be a more attractive venture for either a private contractor or the city of Prince Rupert to take over.
Well, I think that is pretty well up to the city. We've got our 3-year funding behind us with environmental partners, and that puts us in a very comfortable position for 3 years and also gives the city time. and time to see how we're doing and to see how the kinks are being ironed out with a collection program throughout the city with the blue boxes. And I think the 3 years is a good deadline to consider for the city or any other private business that could also take it over. It's not just the city that could do it.
The recycling venture in Prince Rupert has been a real example of cooperation. From the volunteers who were the wheels behind the idea in the first place, to the city of Prince Rupert and the federal government, which have chipped in valuable monetary contributions, to private businesses, which have donated materials, equipment, and bargains on shipping rates.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
In 1990, at age 29, Jim Terrion walked across Canada to raise money and awareness for the deaf and hearing impaired, specifically to help stage the 12th World Winter Games for the deaf to be held in Calgary. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives as Jim reaches Prince Rupert.
Busloads of students and well-wishers were on hand at Galloway Rapids, a short distance away from Prince Rupert, to join Terrion in the final steps of his walk. While Terrion and his entourage of vehicles made their way into town, others were there waiting to greet him. Hundreds of people were on hand when Terrion finally made it to his journey's end at the city's Fairview floats. The plan was to empty a bottle full of Atlantic seawater into the Pacific, but that had to wait, as the throng of well-wishers created a victory wreath around Terrion's neck with meters and meters worth of red ribbon, used instead of applause as part of a silent cheer campaign in recognition of Terrion's efforts. Eventually, though, he did make it down to the water, and it was there that the campaign symbolically came to an end.
This is the water that I brought back from St. John's, Newfoundland. I took it to Victoria. I dumped part of it into the ocean in Victoria. I brought the rest here to Prince Rupert, and I'm going to pour the water in to symbolize the completion of my walk.
The ceremony ended the walk, but it in no way ended the day's celebrations. From the pier, it was back to the Civic Center Gymnasium, where an official welcome from the city awaited him.
On behalf of the entire community of Prince Rupert, we want to extend to you your recognition to which you're entitled and to present you with the key to the city.
Prince Rupert MLA Dan Miller was also on hand to present Terrion with the pin normally reserved for members of the legislature. Following the official welcomes came a chance for people to shower Terrion with donations towards his campaign and with their love, translated for the occasion.
I feel so surprised because of the people and their response and their welcome. I feel the walk has been a really good walk, and people all across the walk were great.
Do you feel that you've accomplished everything that you set out to accomplish when you began the walk?
I feel completely satisfied.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.